Cheers, man.
Cheers. That's tasty.
It is tasty.
Yeah. So out of the two bottles that you presented for us to drink today, I don't know. I just got drawn to this one because it felt kind of like springy.
Yeah, it is kind of springy. I mean, there's a tree on it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, this is what is Kimoto Junmai Tai Heizan brewed with Shirakami spring water.
Yeah.
It's funny how this label is like all in English.
Yeah, I was really kind of like surprised by that. Like, it feels like the Gaikokujin sake.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, so it's funny because the label is more like something you would see in like a liquor store in the States. Because like I feel like the labels in America are much more like design oriented.
Yeah, and I think there's like a lot of information that's immediately presented on the label, whereas like I think like traditional Nihonshu is just like
name.
Yeah. I mean, you put away the other bottle. The other bottle's like that, right? Where it just shows the name and it's got like where it's from and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just different aesthetics, you know.
Yeah.
But so Austin, today, what are we going to talk about?
We are talking about religion.
Shukyo kawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like the main things we'll be discussing is like, you know, what is religion here?
Yeah.
And then I think another interesting topic would be diving into like perceptions of what Westerners are like in terms of religion.
Yeah. So, especially as particularly Americans, because Americans are a unique breed. Like, did you grow up religious?
Yeah, I grew up Catholic.
But when I say religious, did you actually like believe it? It was like a big part of your life?
Oh God, yeah. We went to Catholic Mass like every Sunday. We celebrated Lent. It sucked.
Okay. So I think we should start first by giving like our kind of religious backgrounds, because mine is it's kind of unique because I'm an atheist now.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I was like an evangelical Christian that would go to church on Sundays, go to small group on Wednesdays.
You weren't the type of person to knock on people's doors.
No. Those are Jehovah's Witnesses. They're a little bit different. No, but I was basically like
hey, come to church.
Yeah, I wasn't the guy who would like knock on your door, but I would be like, hey neighbor, let's be friends. Oh, by the way, I go to this church. You want to come with me? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like religion and church and God and was a huge part of my life. I read the Bible every morning for like years. Yeah. You know, that's where I came from.
Wow.
Yeah. And what about you?
So I kind of had a weird journey because so my family's always been Christian and actually they still are. I'm no longer religious.
What does it mean to be Christian to you?
So I mean, I don't even know what sect of Christianity they were.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, believing in Jesus Christ and you know all the little like check marks for Christianity, that's what it feels like. Yeah. You celebrate Christmas, you go to church like occasionally. Yeah. That's when I say Christian, that's like the default. Yeah. Christian. Mm-hmm. I believe both my parents grew up Catholic. Mm-hmm. And then when I was a kid, we went to like some weird like new age Christian churches. Okay. It was like there was this like I remember being like 4 or 5 years old and we went to this church. It was like the Church of like Religious Science or some stupid name like that. Okay. But yeah, so we bounced around a little bit and then I think like when I hit my teen years, for whatever reason I felt like a calling to go like experiment around with religions. And so we tried out a couple places and we ended up like kind of going back to my parents' roots and becoming Catholic. Okay. And so I went through the full initiation process for becoming Catholic, which
what does that look like?
So Catholicism is like the oldest Christians like group, right? And like the main difference between Catholics and like regular Christians is like everything they do is like rooted in tradition. Yeah. So actually there's like a lot of connections you can draw with Catholicism and like Shinto religion.
I would say Buddhism. Actually, you know, prayer beads come from Buddhism.
That's fair.
Yeah, that rosary
the reason you could I guess connect it to both. But the main thing I was drawing in is like there's a lot of like ceremony and practice and there's like a lot of like meaning in like this like the building of the church. Right. But yeah, so like that's the main difference there. And so with a lot of other Christian groups, you can kind of just join.
Yeah.
And then you become part of that community.
Yeah, right.
But like Catholicism is like the
big time.
Well, I feel like it's like it's not a secretive club, but it's very exclusive.
Yeah.
Like, so one thing that you do as a Christian, if you go to church more often than not, is you eat and drink what's called the body and the blood of Christ.
Oh yeah, the communion, right?
Communion.
You got like a little wafer and some wine.
So it's like a little bread wafer and it's like a little sip of wine.
Yeah.
Right. And if you go to Catholic Mass, you cannot do that if you have not been initiated as a Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a really big thing. So like, when I first started going to church, it's like, I felt left out. Yeah. And I feel like that's like one of their little tactics to try and get you into the church. You
have an in-group and an out-group.
Yeah. So, so you got to go through this whole thing, and it took like a year, and, you got to get baptized at the end. And it's like, there's this huge path. And, I felt happy for a while. And then, I went in the military and got kind of disillusioned on religion. And I saw a lot of the negative, sides of religion. So now I'm not.
Yeah. Okay.
But so that's my story.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because so my mom, her mom is Italian. My grandmother's Italian. Yeah. And on my dad's side, they're Greek. So my dad grew up Greek Orthodox, and he would go to Greek Orthodox church near the house.
And what's that like?
It's like the Greek version of Catholic stuff. You have like a guy, actually they dress in, when they're outside, they dress in black robes. I think when they're doing the service, they dress in white robes. But I think the biggest difference between like Orthodox Christianity and Catholic Christianity is that I feel like Orthodox Christianity is a lot more like ornate and beautiful. Like they have like icons. They have like the pictures of the saints in that very 2D style. And it's like, they literally, the whole wall is covered with like these gold plated, gold leaf picture paintings.
I will say, I think like, oh God, what are they called now? Not basilica.
Cathedrals?
Cathedrals. There we go. Why is my mind not working? I will say that some of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen are cathedrals. Right. Like they look, I love stained glass. Yeah. It looks so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so when you go to Europe and you get to those old cathedrals, it's beautiful, but it's like stone and they're stained glass. But like with Greek Orthodoxy, you have to be baptized into the church and you have to be Greek because you're Greek Orthodox. But they have like, the walls are covered in these gold leaf paintings. So they have like little images of Jesus with Mother Mary and stuff. So it's much more like stimulating visually, you know. But in the end, they do because it's Greek Orthodox, they do the whole service in Greek. So if you don't understand Greek, then it doesn't work. And what's interesting is, in like really traditional Orthodox Jewish services, when they read scripture or something, they sing it in Hebrew. Like they use like a sing-song voice when they read it. They don't just read it straight.
And it's the same with Catholic Mass.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, cool. And they do that in Greek Latin. Orthodox too. Yeah. So that's basically the Greeks and the Romans were both Christians, and then they were like, hey, the Pope is number one. No, the Pope isn't number one. Our guy's number one. Split. Yeah. That's what happened. Yeah. But so for you, what was kind of interesting when you came here in like with religion here?
Yeah, so Japan's kind of like a really odd place for me because
religion-wise.
Yeah, because like there's so much religious influence here. Yeah. You see it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Every single place you go to in Japan, you can see religion everywhere, but no one's really religious here.
Yeah. And if you say, what religion are you? Like you say, oh, I'm Catholic. But like over here, it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. It's such a weird thing for me to comprehend because you would think that like going here, I mean, you see shrines everywhere. I bet you could go outside right now and walk like 3 minutes and find a shrine.
Actually, you could walk 3 minutes and find a shrine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Fushimi shrine, Inari shrine. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like there's so much religion here, but like no one's religious.
But everyone does Hatsumode and everyone does the things like like a lot of houses, maybe not modern houses, but a lot of older houses have like a kamidana where they have like a little shrine, you know? And it's funny because it's like, oh, look, so you're worshiping that thing. Like, what do you mean? I'm just putting out the drinks for the kami. Is that worship? Like, I feel like in the West, and this is very much like kind of Western culture, especially in the United States, everything is very clear and definite.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Japan, it's like everything's kind of mixed together and it's not really clear.
It's like the same concept with like, what is it? Monotheism.
Yeah. Monotheism. Yeah.
Yeah. With like one God.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like when you're over in the US, you're typically talking about like Western religions or like the concept of what, like the big three, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Right. Yeah. And the one thing that all of those religions have in common is they all have the same God.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
at least on paper, some people disagree with you, but
sure. Yeah. But it's like when you mention God over there, everyone knows like who you're talking about, but like here, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's like oh, so when you go and you do the praying thing, so you're praying to the kami or something. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just sending out good vibes. You know, it's like it's so like my one of my best friends, Ken. He I've known him for a really long time, and he told me that religion in Japan is more of like a mindset than like a definitive set of beliefs.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you ask, oh, are you Buddhist? Like, sure. Are you Shinto? Sure. Are they the same? I don't know. So which one are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, because it's like, it just becomes so ingrained into like the cultural fabric that people just do without even thinking about it. But one thing I do like about it though, is that I feel like more than in the United States, it creates like a sense of like, not intuitive, intentional, a more intentional interaction with your environment, you know, because like there's kami everywhere. And, you know, you have your kami at your shrine. You also have your kamidana, you know, it's just makes you care more about things, I think.
Yeah. I think that is true. Like, I feel like people tend to like at least appreciate nature more. Because I think there's more of a focus on like, okay, well, it's like you have the god of this river, you have, and so like people start identifying these natural features around them as spiritual and significant. Yeah. So like there's less of an emphasis of wanting to like change or, you know, disrupt that. Yeah. Right. It's a big reason why. I think we talked about power spots.
I think you talked a little bit, but
I think we've talked about this before. So power spots are what's believed. And it's not unique to Japan, but it's what's like there are places in the world that people believe to be filled with power. Yeah, and energy. It's expected that you'll experience like a spiritual presence or feeling if you go to these power spots. And they can be positive or negative, you know, it's what people believe, but it's often said that Japan is filled with these power spots. Yeah. Right. And so, but if you look on a map where all the power spots are, guess where they are?
Where?
Forests, rivers, mountains, like all these places. Yeah. And I think it's because a lot of people have started identifying these spots as spiritual places. You know, because they appreciate nature.
Yeah, you know, one thing that I really like is when you have like a really big tree, or you have like sometimes you have a really big boulder, and they'll put like a cord, like a rope around it that signifies that there's like a god here, kami here or something. Yeah. And it's like, oh, so you believe there's a kami living inside there. What's his name? It's like, I don't understand what the question is, you know, just like, there's this power here that it's more like you recognize this power, you know? Yeah. But, you know, for me, that's really different from religion in the United States, particularly Protestant Christianity.
I think if I were to really place like the main difference, I would say that like Western religions have a significantly greater emphasis on the soul, or like the human aspect of religion, Whereas I think like Shinto and Buddhist kind of focus on like the environment and trying to like, attune yourself to the environment.
Yeah.
It's like one of the big things about being a Christian is going to heaven.
Yeah.
And like trying to be a good person so that you're worthy enough to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like trying to redeem yourself. And, Judaism and Islam kind of have their own versions of that too. So it's like, I feel like there's far more emphasis on like the soul aspect.
Yeah. I feel like, so with religion here and going back to like putting the rope around things, I feel like a lot of things are centered and focused on the here and now and the physical stuff. Whereas like religion, especially in Christianity, it's a rejection of the physical form. Like, like even in traditional ancient Greek philosophy, people believed that there was a soul that was the pure, unadulterated person that's being weighed down by this body of flesh. And the way to be free from all the problems in the world is to get rid of your body and flesh, which doesn't mean to like kill yourself, but it means to, when you die, your soul gets separated from that and it goes somewhere else. And everything is all about the different world, the spirit world. I'm going somewhere. And especially in the Christianity that I grew up in, which was more fundamentalist, evangelical Christianity, there was like a whole story arc to it where, like the whole story of Christianity basically, and Jesus himself was a doomsday prophet saying, the world is going to end, everyone repent, So it's going on that line. But basically like, God made us, we were happy, we sinned, God separated from God, God brings Jesus to bring us back to God. And those who reject God are going to go to hell, and those who accept God are going to go to heaven and live in this spiritual realm, and there's going to be a final judgment where everything is decided. Like there's this whole story arc happening, whereas like in
it's like a movie.
It's like a movie. Whereas like in Shintoism, Buddhism, it's like, let's just talk about right now. That's it.
No, it is true. And it's like, especially if you get on the Catholic side of things, it's like very self-deprecating. Like, I'm a terrible person.
You have to go to confession and confess your sins.
I should feel bad about myself. It's like, dude, screw this. Like,
I mean, I remember, so my family is still very religious, and since renouncing my faith, my sister has become more religious, kind of ironically, but I hope she's not watching this right now. What was I going to say? So like I tell people about my my deconversion story, moving from Christianity to atheist. 'Cause first, me just saying, hey, I got rid of my religion, a lot of people here are like, wait, can you do that? Like, how does that work? Because doesn't make sense.
Well, I have something to talk about that too, but okay, I want you to finish your story.
So basically, so like with Christianity, especially like the Christianity that I was a part of, there's a premise that we have sin and we're all destined to go to hell. But Jesus resurrected from the dead to take our sins, so we don't have to go to hell. We can be united with God. And so if Jesus didn't actually die and rise from the dead, then there's no point in believing. Like even Paul in the Bible, like he was writing the letters and stuff, he's like, if Jesus hasn't been raised, then we are to be most pitied above all men. That's what he said. And so I was like, shit, that's really important. So I started researching a lot, and I started reading the Bible very objectively. And I was like, hey, a lot of this doesn't make sense. I've been reading the Bible for years, but reading it really objectively, like this doesn't pass the sniff test to me, And so like 3 years in, researching tons of stuff, going through a lot of like agonizing discussions with myself, with my parents, with my church, I just came to the conclusion that like, hey, this is not based in reality. I don't believe that the resurrection of Jesus is a historical fact that actually happened. And therefore, to all of my friends at that time, I wasn't a Christian. I don't believe, and I'm going to hell. And that was tough because at that time, my main center of community and friendship was in the church. So by saying that, I kind of like lost my whole friend group. And they wouldn't say like they rejected me, but it's like our things in common just like didn't hold us together anymore. We just got separate, But when I tell that story to Japanese people, they're like, dude, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why do you have to go do that stuff? Like, why can't you just believe? Like, can you actually stop believing? Like believe. You don't even need to believe. You just are Christian, right? Because the mindset's so different.
No, it is true. I think for me, the thing that like really kind of disillusioned me was I really started thinking about why I went into religion to begin with.
Yeah.
And I was seeking out a community.
Yeah.
Right. And I found that community and I joined it. And then I was thinking about like, do I need the religion part in order to seek out a community? No, I don't. I can just go make friends with people.
Yeah.
And that part kind of sunk in. And then, you know, when I joined the military, it was, you know, kind of at the peak of like the Iraq-Afghan war. And, you know, you got to see like a lot of like the really dirty, grisly sides of religion and like what extremism can be like. You're
talking about like extremist Islam?
Yeah, with like Islam, but also you also saw the same thing with Christianity back in stateside, right? There was a lot of like anti-Muslim sentiment back then in the US, and Christianity was getting pushed really, really hard, and you would see some of the extreme parts of Christianity as well.
In the States, getting pushed hard? Yeah.
And so it was just really ugly to me. And I looked at that and I was just like, I don't want to be a part of this, you know? But it's, I think like Western religions like really, really emphasize on like that. It's kind of like a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, it's like with Western relationships, it's like there needs to be a label.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, we need to be boyfriend, girlfriend. We need to be husband and wife. It's like religions is like, I need to be labeled as X, Y, Z religion. Whereas like, you know, here it's like you just kind of, oh, you know, this looks interesting and I like this. So
yeah, let's get married in a Christian church, even though we're not Christian, because it looks nice, you know, like that.
I had a Shinto wedding. Yeah, I'm not Shinto. My wife's not Shinto.
Yeah,
we are.
it's so weird. Like, you know, so one thing, especially I think for the Japanese people watching this, there's some important historical context with like Islam and Christianity, because especially, you know, with Israel and like America and like Hamas now, you know, all this stuff going on. But like, so basically, you know, like I said before, Christianity is basically the religion that came about because people believe that Jesus rose from the dead for the salvation of everyone.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between Jewish people and Muslims, because, you know, to fundamentalist Christians, Jesus is God and he rose from the dead. Whereas for Jews, that's not true. And for Muslims, that's not true. But like, you know, back even in the Middle Ages, you know, now, you know, we have different races of people. We have like white, black, Asian, whatever. But back then there were two types of people. There were Christians and Muslims, or non-Christians, you know, and you've had these huge like conflicts for centuries between Christianity and Islam, especially during the Crusades in like the 1000s, 1100s, whatever, you know, going over to Jerusalem and stuff. But even when the Muslims tried to push up from Africa up into Spain and took over Spain for a while. And so you have this like constant conflict between like the Christians and the Muslims that's even playing out now, just in a less direct way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Completely.
Yeah. And it's funny because like technically they both believe in the same story, that like the God of Abraham passed down. But what the Muslims believe is that the real religion narrative went through his first son, Ishmael. And then the Jews are like, no, it's Isaac.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the two separation there, right? And so there's conflict there too. And then Christians are like, hey, you both are wrong. Jesus is right. And it's like, technically it's the same God, but it's not. But then there's all this conflict happening. Like, and like Japanese people are just like, hi, we believe in something. You know?
Yeah, it's really crazy. And especially like if you get into the history of like Western religions trying to be introduced to Japan throughout I mean, what was that movie that we watched? Silence. Yeah. That was a crazy movie.
It's a crazy movie, right? But the thing about that was that, so for Japanese people, right, that wasn't even about religion, that was politics. Because they thought like the kings and the Pope were going to try to take over Japan, you know?
Which they absolutely would have tried.
Would have. Yeah,
like,
right.
Let's be honest here.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like the fact that Christianity has never really been able to establish a foothold in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see like every once in a while you'll stumble across like a Christian church here.
Yeah.
But 99.99% of the time, if you go in there, it's foreigners.
Yeah.
Like the actual population of Japanese Christians is like very, very small.
Yeah.
They do exist, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And that's kind of crazy given how much like influence Japan has from Western countries.
Yeah.
Like you would think that, because all the other aspects of Western culture has been widely adopted here at this point, you would think that religions would too.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, because I've been wondering about this, especially since I used to go to church here, you know, and I think it goes back to that whole thing, like we talked about before, how in the West, it's very black and white. Either you're in the group or you're out of the group. You believe or you don't believe. You believe this fact is real or you don't believe this fact is real. But in Japan, everything is gray. It's like, do you really believe? I don't know. Sure. I mean, I do the things. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
And like, trying to take that black and white mindset and force it upon a gray mindset just doesn't really match.
Yeah. So there's one other interesting thing. Yeah. Like I had a teacher walk up and ask me about religion for like she was talking about it in like one of her classes, and so she was interviewing a couple of the teachers, the other teachers in my school, and I was one of the teachers, and she was asking me why Americans celebrate Christmas, even if they're not Christian.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't get it. Is it like a European holiday? Is it an American holiday? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why do you celebrate Christmas here in Japan?
Yeah. Oh,
it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome getting presents and just eating a lot.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Did you know that now, like in like some Jewish people have Hanukkah bushes now because they can't have a Christmas tree, so they have Hanukkah
so they
bushes.
Do a Hanukkah bush? That's hilarious.
Bush. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the town that I lived in was like 20-30% Jewish, so
really?
We had a lot of that stuff.
A Hanukkah bush. That's a first. I mean, I get it, the burning bush thing. But...
Yeah. No, it's a Christmas tree, but it can't be Christmas because we're not Christian, so it's Hanukkah.
I thought it was like the whole thing with not Noah. Who's the
Moses with the burning bush? No. They just wanted a Christmas tree, but it can't be Christmas.
That's so lame. Like at least make that connection there, so it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah. That's funny.
Don't get me started with like Jewish Christian relations in Europe.
We don't have Jews on the West Coast. Well, we do in like California, but like you go to Seattle, dude. I've never met a Jewish person in my life.
That's what I realized. There's like
never in my life.
So at UW Seattle campus, there was a kid who always had like he was going to do the Jewish Student Association, like a club.
Yeah,
and.
It was him.
It was only him. And I remember he would go up to random people, like they were walking by and say, hey, are you Jewish? He asked me like, hey, are you Jewish? I'm like, no, I'm Greek, But it's funny because my final year, like right before I left the school, there was one other person at his table that I saw. He'd been doing it for like 4 years.
Hey man, that's 100% increase in population right there.
That is true. But back on the East Coast, there's tons of Jewish people. We have actually we have 2 Jewish community centers in my town.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I know. And then so it's funny because like that, so being a German-born, part Italian American, very interested in Japan, person in my school was a very uncomfortable thing because people are like, when you talk about like the Holocaust and World War II, and then people just look at me because I'm the one from Germany, kind of, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's so funny. So talking about that too, just, I don't know how much you know about this, but like Jews got a real tough situation, for the vast majority of European history. Like, do you remember, like, of course, the Rothschild family is super famous, right?
Yeah.
So they're the progenitor, the first guy who's kind of started the dynasty, whatever, he grew up in like 1700s Frankfurt, Germany, and Jews were unable to live outside of one street that they called the Judengasse, which is the Jew street. So the Jews can only live on the Jew street.
Okay.
You can't. So it was super overpopulated.
I didn't know there was like anti-Jew stuff.
Yeah,
back then.
No. So what would happen is they would put like the Jews in their own quarters, and they were separated from society because they were the ones who killed Jesus, And then they would make rumors about them eating babies and stuff. And then sometimes Christians would like go in there and like go into the Jewish quarters and like kill people just randomly.
That's crazy,
they
man.
were drunk. Yeah.
I don't know. This is me just being a, uneducated American. I just assumed that all started up with Hitler. I didn't know that had a history.
Well, it goes back to like you have a group of people who are separate in your community. You don't really know about them, and if you don't know about them, it's very easy to like make stories up about them. Mm-hmm. But like the fact that for Christians you had to rest on Sunday, but Jews didn't have to. They rested on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing on Sundays?
They're scheming.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, so. Like you have all this complicated thing about labels and like keeping everything separate. Whereas in Japan, it's like Shinto's nice. The Buddhism comes along. Hey, let's do this too. And they all just kind of put everything together.
I'm not too familiar with the really like way far back part of Japanese history. Was there any conflict between like Shintoism and Buddhism?
A little bit. So I took a class of called Buddhism in Japan.
Yeah.
In Japan.
Yeah.
I took it at the school. And basically, so what happened was around like the 600s or 700s, Buddhist missionaries from China would come to Japan and they would tell about their religion of like, you have all these Buddhas. Because, in Chinese Buddhism, you have all these Buddhas, And the Japanese people are like, hey, we're okay. We have our own kami,
that's
here
such
we
a
have
Japanese response.
We're okay. We don't really need
good.
it. I'm good. But then like some of the Buddhist missionaries got like really buddy with the royalty.
Okay.
And I think like in the 700s or something, this guy, I think his name is Shotoku Taishi or something like that. Prince, whatever, Shotoku or something.
Yeah.
He like became friends with some Buddhist people and he really wanted to spread Buddhism around Japan because Shinto is very local.
Yeah.
There's no sort of governance around. But with Buddhism, you can have a little bit of governance and stuff around it. So he wanted to promote that. And the way he did it is he said, hey, your kami, they don't have any physical form or anything. You don't know what they look like. Oh. Hey, these Buddhists are the physical forms of your kami. Yeah. So in Japan, a lot of times when you have like a Buddhist temple, next to it, you'll have a shrine, which is like the kami that's...
Okay, you know what? That answers so many questions because there's so many times I've been really confused here. Like you go to Kamakura, for example, right? So I live near Kamakura and I go there often. And like, I was walking with my wife and I was like, I don't get it. Like, is Kamakura, like, is it a Buddhist place? Mm-hmm. And she's like, no. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so that means it's a Shinto place, right? And she's like, no, it's both. And I'm like, dude, how can it be both? Mm-hmm. Okay, like the concept of like two major religions just sharing a spot right next to each other, I can't comprehend that.
Yeah. And it goes back to the black and white. You either are on or off. You're either or, right? But here it's like, hey, you're kind of both.
Oh man, that's so hard to. Like,
although what's interesting though is that then in like the 1800s when the emperor was starting to come back and actually nationalism was starting to come back because. When the Europeans came in, sorry, I'm a huge history nut, so
I love history too.
So like when the Europeans were coming, the Japanese really understood how weak their relationship with China made them. Like China at that time was a client state of England, basically. Like they were a colony, right? And like, oh shoot, we don't want to end up like China. Hey, China really like messed us up. So they wanted to distance themselves from China, and Buddhism comes from China. So there was this huge push to separate Buddhism and Shintoism in like the 1800s.
Oh, interesting.
And so like a lot of Buddhist temples were like ransacked and they lost their licenses and they were forcibly turned into Shinto places or something like that. And then after like around World War II or after that, they're like, hey, that was a mistake. Let's put them back together again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I had never known that.
Yeah. And it was like, and at that time too, they're like, we need to have a Japanese mythology like the Europeans have a mythology. So let's make one consistent narrative.
No way, that just got made at some point?
Well, so what they did is they took a lot of like local stories from around, they kind of meshed them together to make one narrative. Although you have like Nihon Shoki, which is like, or the Kojiki, I think it is, which is like one of the original ones. So they did it at the time when they were putting Buddhism with Japan, with Shintoism, and then they kind of did it again afterwards.
That's so interesting because I mean, like I don't know. For me, like you would think that you would start with the origin story, and then kind of expand there.
Yeah, well, because it's like Shinto's all about the now.
Yeah,
like, who cares about the past? There's kami here. I want a good harvest. This is great. Let's do this.
Yeah,
you don't need that story. But you know, it's weird. That's a very characteristic of like animistic cultures, and Japan is the only modern country that has an animistic religion at its base. All the other religions are like monotheist or polytheist, but only Japan is like, hey, God is in everything. Yeah, everything has God in it. You know.
Yeah, I also feel like there has to be some connection with like philosophy, because if you look at like, I mean, Buddhism has a lot of philosophy in it too, because like China is like one of the main like pillars of philosophy in human society. Yeah, but like Europe is also like kind of considered like the center of philosophy. Yeah, and you know, having those religions kind of stem from like the Middle East and Europe. Whereas I feel like Japan, there's a lot less like thinking about the why.
Like, what makes you say that? I don't disagree with you, but
so I think there's a lot of the a lot of the Western religions. If you think about the story, you can really think about someone at some point in time just going, "Why do you think there's a sky?
Yeah.
Why do you think that yellow dot's in the sky?"
In Japan, it would be red, but
okay. But like, you know, there's a lot of people just sitting down and going, "Why did this happen? Yeah. Why do you think this is this way?" You know, and like with here, I mean, you can, like I said, you can kind of see it with Buddhism too, because there's like a lot of the religion does feel like there is a why, but like with Shinto, it's like it is.
Yeah. Well, like they did have a lot of like local folklore stories that just never got systematized into one thing, you know? So like, I'm sure depending on where you're from, you have different local myths, but there's not like one cohesive thing that's the same for everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just really different. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is I want to talk about the new religions. So Shinko Shukyo, like happy science.
Is that the like cult of personality thing?
Yeah.
Oh man, that makes me feel real uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I feel like it would be good to talk about that because in America too, we have those new religions like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism.
And also, those make me feel really uncomfortable. Yeah. Like, look, I try to be a person who's like tolerant of other people's religions, but man, it is obnoxious having people knock on your door.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. I hated it. And it's, I don't know, it's like the idea of really putting like another person up on like a really high pedestal is just something that makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like it just feels like a really like, I want to say like natural or instinctive revulsion is how I feel.
But Christianity does that with Jesus though.
Yeah, but I feel like with Jesus, like it feels different. I don't know. Maybe it was just because it happened a long time ago, and like, you know, like stuff like Mormonism and stuff, you know, happened in a recordable point in history. You know, so maybe that's why. So it's like there's more connection. Yeah. So I feel like it's easier to poke holes in, but
yeah. I feel like in America, like the new religions like Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, they function a lot like businesses. Yeah. Where they're trying to go door-to-door sales kind of stuff. Yeah. Do you know how Jehovah's Witnesses started, by the way?
No.
I'm going to get huge flack from like the JWs watching this because I'm sure there's a couple of them.
Like 2?
Probably like 5. But I know one of my first students was Jehovah's Witness. But so basically, do you know about the Seventh-day Adventist?
By people? Name?
Just the name. You don't know what they do. So basically, Seventh-day Adventist was like this Protestant cult that started in the late 1700s. So it's like the OG of new religions, basically. Okay. And there was one guy within the Seventh-day Adventist group that said, hey, I figured out when the end of the world is going to happen. It's
oh my God, I'm sure people ate that up.
It's going to be in 1832. I don't know when it was, but it's going to be in 1832 on this day. So everybody sold all their stuff and they were prepared for Jesus to come on that day in 1832, whenever. And he didn't come. And then the pastor was like, hey, wait, actually, sorry guys, I made a mistake. I re-looked at everything. No, he's going to come in 1942. 10 years later. I was off by 10 years, sorry. So 1942 comes along. Jesus doesn't come back. He's like, sorry guys. Actually, he did come back just in a way we didn't expect it to. And those people became Jehovah's Witnesses.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you learn something new every day.
There you go, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So growing up, our family friends were Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
And I just remember it being like kind of awkward around like Christmas and stuff. Cause like their whole thing is like, they don't like celebrate holidays or anything. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so
they don't celebrate birthdays.
Yeah. And so like, Christmas would come and, I'd get stuff for Christmas and I'd talk to my friend and be like, oh dude, did you get anything? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
that's so sad.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking as a kid, like, God, man, I'm so glad I'm Christian.
Yeah, right. Not like one of those things. Yeah, because like with the new religions, you have to do something above and beyond to make yourself separate from the other people. You have to be more pure. I mean, in all fairness, like the first people to come to America were the Puritans. They were also like the weird fundamentalists. They didn't celebrate Christmas.
Well, that's your East Coast culture,
which moved over to you.
Well, no. We were settled by the Dutch and English, so we were normal humans. So. Okay.
Man. Oh, man.
We had some Mexican Catholics kind of mixed with us too, so yeah, we're pretty normal over there.
Oh man. Dude, I feel like we could talk about this, like different aspects of this for a long time.
Religion's a fun topic. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are sleeping watching our video, but the cool thing about religion is it's deeply connected with history.
Yeah.
So it's like you often need to understand one to understand the other.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun topic.
Especially like in the West, like I talked about, like the conflicts and stuff. Yeah. A lot of wars happen because of religious differences
and continue to happen.
Yeah. But it just goes back to like, I feel like religion in the West is like a suit you put on. It's the clothes you put on. Like, this is my statement of who I am. Whereas like the religion in Japan is like your skin tone. It's just part of who you are. You never really think about it. You just like, I can't change it. It's just part of who I am,
Yeah.
But yeah, we could talk about a lot of other stuff, but I think we're almost done with this, man.
Yeah, we powered out that bottle.
This is really nice.
I like this bottle. It's good.
Yeah. It's very light.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
But what do you want to talk about next time, Austin?
I think we can talk about a lighter topic and just go into Okashi culture.
Okashi culture in America and chips, about how Japanese chips, American chips are horrible. Doritos, I hate them.
Oh, you have a bad opinion, so that's okay.
Okay, I'll see you next time.